Welcome to Afros and Audio's Black History Month interview series. My name is Talib Jasir, founder and CEO of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival and the Vanguard Podcast Network. I'm excited to spotlight 29 outstanding indie podcast creatives and professionals who answered the call to be a part of this series. My guests today are J. Ray and DJ Sir Daniel. Welcome and thank you for being here. How are y'all today?
Fantastic. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Same. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and can't wait to have this conversation.
Awesome. So I want to jump right in. Can you share the origin story of Q Points and what inspired you both to focus on Black music history?
So I can start, Sir Daniel, and then you can pick up what's interesting is, I've known DJ Sir Daniel for a long time, over a decade now at this point, which is crazy. And we had done work together on other projects when I was, of course, based in Atlanta. And during the pandemic, we both had like projects happening in kind of the social media space where we were talking about Black music, but from different vantage points. I was doing something called the Black Music Mixtape, and you were doing some stuff, Sir Daniel. And I think that was how we really reconnected in kind of this space, right?
True. 100%. Yes. So we were both kind of like, I'm doing stuff, but I want to take it to another level. I want to become a sought after expert in this field because we just felt like this is something that we put our heart and souls into and we felt passionately about. Again, both of us connected over music. I was DJing for a few years prior, and J. Ray had aspirations of becoming a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And so we shared that passion for the music, and then the conversations we would have these spin-off conversations like nobody's business. And we also always had friends telling us like, wow, you guys like can really carry on a conversation about music. And J. Ray is known for having all of these factoids and knowledge about certain things that you just wouldn't even think about. And then of course, I'm the guy that's always behind the turntables and always, as you can see behind me, buying music. So it just made sense. And it all came together like, it really, I can't believe we're in what, year 4 now, and just expanding. The ideas are nonstop, and
Yes.
I really appreciate the point of view that we come from.
Yes.
Is that we always say we just don't want to talk about gossip around celebrity surrounding the music industry. We wanted to come at it from an emotional standpoint of what this music means to us as a people and a culture, because one of the things that we carried with us when we were, what's the word they like to say, imported, when we were imported, is that we took that music with us and we took it and made it into something even that they're celebrating to this day, up until recently at the Grammys. So yeah, that's the origin story of Q Points podcast. And funny story, the title Q Points comes from basically records. If you notice a DJ, they'll have these little either stickers or have marker linings drawn on a certain point on a record.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a vinyl DJ, you're very familiar with this. What that helps you to know is where the pickup point is for a certain break on a record.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to hit it on the 1, you can hit it on the 1. That's where it is. And so what we like to do is we like to pick up on different points of Black music history and just expound on them. Yeah. And so that's where we get the title Q Points for our podcast.
That's dope. I love that story. I love the Q Point title. I learned about that, what you're talking about, Sir Daniel, in Get Down, the show Get Down.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when I first saw that. And I was like, oh, is that what's happening there? Because I'm a vinyl collector as well. Some of them have lines on them, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Until I learned what it was and what it was there for. So that's pretty dope. I want to get into you all specifically. J. Ray, with your diverse background in photography, consulting, and social commentary, how do you weave these experiences into the storytelling aspects of Q Points?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. So, the first thing that you should know about me is I have been still finding my voice as a podcaster on air. The good thing is I'm naturally curious about people and experiences. So to Sir Daniel's point, I like learning interesting factoids and like just talking to folks about things. So all of my work, actually, my photography, my consulting really starts as a baseline from just an interest in learning about people and their experiences. And then taking that information and, okay, how can I, from my vantage point, help someone or an entity be their best at that thing, right? So I'm taking it in, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, how can this be better, right? Or how can I help you get to where you want to go? So from the Q Points perspective, I really spend a lot of my time on the back end. I'm obviously on air because I'm a co-host with DJ Sir Daniel. But one of the things I absolutely love in the Q Points experience is me getting to move the widgets kind of in the background. Like the technology, like how's the production going to move? How do we make that better, right? All of these pieces. And that's how I take all of those things that I love and kind of put them in to Q Points. What I am learning is what being J. Ray on the mic means. You know what I mean? Sir Daniel is a master storyteller. I absolutely love that about him. We are always having memories unlocked on the show. And I love it when he has those moments. And I am learning that, right? Learning how to lean into the fullness of who I am in Q Points. But really, at the crux of it, all of it is I'm just naturally curious about stuff and trying to find a way to use that to tell stories about Black music history.
That's awesome. And DJ Sir Daniel, as an advocate for DJ culture and a member of an all vinyl crew, how do you see Q Points contributing to the inclusivity and celebration of Black music, and specifically to Q Points?
Oh, wow. So you said it. As a DJ, as somebody who is responsible for curating your life events, your celebrations, it's very important, in my opinion, for DJs to be very learned about this craft, about where music comes from, about where the artists and their backgrounds, because I think you come to any set, any party, any gig, you come to it as a full person and you come to it with a full understanding of what you're bringing to this event, right? And then it also boosts your confidence in what you're doing and gives you a sense of pride in what you're performing. And so DJing, specifically vinyl DJing, which I happen to love, it's just something about, I still remember to this day at the age of 13 at the Left Rack Co-op City Rec Center, my mother's cousin's wedding day. And I just remember it was also my birthday. And I was like, why am I at somebody's wedding on my birthday? But I was introduced to this DJ, and I don't remember his name, but I'll never forget standing there and just being transfixed and looking at each and every single time he pulled a selection and kept the party going. I don't even remember if he was smooth or not. I just remember just the magic in that vision of this man behind the turntables. And for years, not having access to turntables, but buying pieces of vinyl here and there, reading the liner notes, all of those things meant a lot to me. You know, buying cassettes, reading those liner notes and finding out who wrote this song, who produced that song, who were their friends, because they would always list the shout outs of the friends that they had in the industry. All of those things meant a lot to me because it gave me a full picture of the era of Black music that I was growing up in. And also then it made me curious to find out about the eras before that. I'm a straight up Gen Xer. I grew up hearing the echoes of the past, but being very present in this future of hip hop as we know it today. And so just my appreciation and love for what we've done as a community and taking nothing and making it into something is just so outstanding to me that I just needed to be a part of it. And my part in this culture is as a DJ, whenever I get the opportunity to play, I just make sure that I realize that this could be my last gig. You never know. So I have to really just play. If something pops up in my head and I'm like, are people going to react to that? Well, sometimes I just have to take a chance because you just don't know. And when that voice says something to me to play something and I do, it typically works out. So my instinct is in play here. And so I just feel like that is my contribution to Black history and carrying on the conversation and the traditions and hoping to build on what we've already created, especially for the young people to have and look at for the future.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Being a fellow Gen Xer and truly believing that we are the blueprint of hip hop, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And knowing that the influence of the music before, so the sampling created
Yes.
this amazing work that now that is lost in the genre, we kind of notice the difference in the genre because there's that influence that has not been carried along and sampled along. We had that, and that made the difference in our music.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you
Discuss that ad nauseum on Q points.
absolutely. Yeah, that is such an important part of the foundation of hip hop that we've talked about a lot because we had a natural connection to our parents and our parents' parents through the art of sampling, right? It forced us as young people to go back and be like, yo, oh, that's a sample. Oh, this is where that comes from. Who is this? Oh, that's this person. And it made us learn, right? We had to go back into the stacks of records and our family and be like, oh, this is so-and-so sampled them, right? There's something, and I have to say this, Sir Daniel, because I don't know if I've even ever told you this story, but when we talk about this idea of one, carrying on traditions and people pouring in to us and giving us room, I forgot. So as a kid, you have your best friends. So my best friend's parents were getting married. I don't know why they let us do this, but he had a huge boombox because it's the 90s, right? So he had this huge boombox. I weirdly figured out how to connect a turntable to the boombox using the aux cord. I'm a kid, right? They let us DJ the wedding with this setup. We were literally kids in the backyard of their parents' homes playing music for this wedding, and we're maybe 11 and 12. And it's so important. I forgot about that moment of these adults holding space for these young people, but also trusting us to play music that they would want to hear at their wedding. And we actually did pretty well.
See, look at that. That's the innovation. That's just,
Yeah.
I don't know
yeah.
if it's genetic or vibrational. It just keeps getting passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And now that we have so many technologies, I remember making these mixtapes for girls and they were all from the radio, but I was recording them and stopping and,
Yep.
waiting for
Stop
the
and
next
go.
song.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So now life has just changed. But back in the day, it was tough. We had a rough way to go. So, including sitting in hot ass cars just to put the tape in so we
Yes.
can listen to it. So,
'Cause that was the ultimate test.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
absolutely. So yeah, we've come a long way, and so it's really exciting. So the podcast format includes live streaming and repurposing content for your listeners. Can you discuss the benefits and challenges of this approach?
Oh my goodness. Well, so interesting. Sir Daniel was he pushed me for the video part. So fun story. We did our first show after we decided that we were going to do something. Not even sure if there was going to be a second show, but then what happened is we took a break because it was my birthday. And people asked Sir Daniel, so there was like no show this week. And you're like, oh, like y'all wanted us to come back and do it again? Oh, okay. And so there's a gap of a week in the first month of the show because we weren't sure. But anyway, and I was committed to, yeah, it could be video, but I mean, it could be audio. And so Daniel was like, no, it needs to be video. Where one that has differentiated us as a podcast in that we have a bunch of video content. So we have over 120 shows of video content that we can pull from social media. It's invaluable. So anytime something happens in music, Q Points probably has a show about that. And we could go and pull from this last 3 years of shows content to be able to put out. So it's invaluable to have the video to be able to repurpose. We are now in the point of archiving stuff so that we know what's in. We've done so many shows that it's like, oh, what's even in this show? What did we talk about? So we're getting to that point now.
Nice. That's just having catalogs and stuff in the archives just waiting. So that's awesome. Especially since it's out there, it's public, right? You're saying that people can watch it now, but at any moment, y'all can use it for something different. And that's what I love about podcasting in general. There is this cornerstone aspect of it so that you can build other things and other material off of this one piece of content. So that's dope. And provide it to different places, organizations, musical spaces, and businesses. That's really cool. So with your podcast reaching a significant number of followers and downloads, what strategies have you found most effective in growing your audience?
We've incorporated a news magazine. We have our Q Points Mag, which is our newsletter to our listeners. We gather that info and we just make sure we stay in contact with people, stay in your face. I've taken the cue personally for myself as a DJ to create a newsletter and send it out from time to time to people that follow me. But I think growing that along with your social media and also creating content, just like J. Ray said, pulling stuff, something will happen. Take, for instance, like this last week, the whole Nicki Minaj and Meg Thee Stallion debacle. We were able to, one, pull from old content that we had discussing diss wars, but then we also hopped on another medium, another platform that we have to do a show where we played records. Now, sometimes we stay away from playing music on the regular podcast simply because of copyright issues and whatnot. We don't want no problems because our show goes on YouTube. We don't know no issues. We don't want to be yanked down for any reason because we need you to hear the show. And so what we did was we found another platform. Can I name it, Jerry? Should I say
Absolutely. Yeah. People need to know.
We hopped on Mixcloud. Now, a lot of people may not use Mixcloud, but it allows you to get on there. You can actually play music along with your discussion. You could even set it up like a radio show if you want to, where you play music and you have your talk. So we were able to do like a little sidebar show called Intended Solely, and just ever changing and ever evolving, creating new formats like Intended Solely to add on to Q Points, the regular podcast, the newsletter, of course, Instagram and Twitter and things like that. But most importantly is reaching out to our podcast brothers and sisters and creating those relationships and having over the holidays, what do we call it? We did trades.
Yeah, it's like a podcast feed swaps.
Podcast feed swap with our podcast brothers and sisters. We run promo swaps with them. So all of those things is what allow us to be exposed to their audiences and vice versa. So that, of course, hopefully it will increase the audience, the listenership, and get people to sign up and subscribe to those YouTube channels and subscribe to our newsletter and just keep the audience growing. Going to professional events such as Afros and Audios and networking in person. And sometimes podcasters may or may not be the most gregarious people and social butterflies, but those events allow you to come out of your shell and to meet people and meet new listeners and create avenues for your audience to grow.
And really quickly, too, piggybacking on that, I think one of the things that we've done is make connections with the platforms that we use. We've developed some really great relationship with Good Pods. Like Good Pods has been really supportive of Q Points, encouraging us to even try things on the platform so that they have the opportunity to support. Definitely have to shout out Libsyn. Libsyn is our podcast host. Libsyn actually shouted us out. One, they include us on their podcast. So we provided our commercial to them. I will say that's a note too. Have a 30-second, have a 1-minute commercial that talks about your show. We furnish that commercial to other folks. And so our podcast host actually includes Q Points in their show. And so they shouted us out as, hey, here's a show that you can always hear about. So all of these things, like these relationships, the social media, the magazine, and then Sir Daniel and I doing our things to lead people back to the show really does make a difference and is helping us to reach a wider audience. And very quickly, definitely we have to shout out our day one listeners. Yo, the people that rock with Q Points, there are folks who come to the show every single week for years. And they're in the chat and they're commenting and they're sharing the show. There's nothing better than that, of knowing that people expect us to show up, and it keeps us on our toes. So when we do take a break, we do let people know, but they expect us to show up on a Thursday at 8 or 8:30 to do a show.
Absolutely. It's invaluable. Yeah, that connection. And one more thing, merchandise.
Merch.
You got put something with your name on it. Like, we are both music enthusiasts, so a lot of our merchandise is compatible with the music lover in your life. Tote bags, hoodies. Who doesn't like a good hoodie with a statement on it? Stop tweeting and start rapping. And for your viewers and listeners, we have a new merchandise drop soon to come out right on time for Valentine's Day, and we can't wait. So we're going to announce that on this week's show. So that's coming up. There's so many different ways to contact people and stay in contact with people and keep your brand and your show on the front of their brains.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that you all have progressed the podcast, the engagement, the way in which you show up, and it sounds like none of it is a space where you're like, oh God, I got a newsletter or the live stream or what have you. It's all like this progression and this enjoyment, and y'all really kind of getting used to the space that you're in, because this is where y'all at and people are loving it. So,
yeah. Well, I will say it'd be hard.
Yeah.
It'd be hard, like, to get all of these components together. But you said it right there, Talib. I think it is the love. You get to go back to the love when it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Daniel, for instance, I love Sir Daniel's last article for the magazine so much because, one, it's the truth of Q Points, in that we're relying on the things that have happened in our past and in our hearts to have these conversations. And that's really impactful, right? So because we can draw from that love, it makes doing the stuff really easy, because you like, I know that this touches me, so it's going to touch somebody else, even though it's midnight. And I have to get this done so that I could trigger it to hit tomorrow at whatever. And I should have did it this weekend, but I was busy doing something else, right? We have to go back to that. So yes, it's fulfilling, but I will tell folks, like, that's the beauty, though, of Sir Daniel and I working together. Me having someone like Sir Daniel to work with makes it easy to do, because it's, we rocking with each other to get all this done.
That's why at the last Afros and Audios, when we hosted our first panel, I straight up said, for those people who do solo podcasts, I take my hats off to you, because I can't imagine, like, you are responsible for every single thing by yourself. And like J. Ray said, I have a partner I can lean on and be like, okay, you mind doing that while I take care of this? You can parcel out all the different duties and whatnot. But For those people that do it on your own, my hat's off to you and stay the course. But for people that are in duos and ensembles, it's really a covenant. If you are truly about the show that you've created, you've got to create a covenant between you and your co-hosts, because this is a partnership that you have to be dedicated to, almost like a marriage. Every Sunday, Jerry and I know what is Sunday Fun Day. We have a specific time that we meet on Sundays, 10:30, to discuss what's happening this week and beyond. And we have to carve out time and dedicate time, especially since we're not both in the same city. So we have to be intentional about keeping that connection alive so that we can make sure that when you hear us, when we crack those mics, that we are prepared and that we are in sync with each other about what we're discussing. I know that conflict sells, but we think that there is value in symbiosis, some friendship, some love going on the air. And we're trying to make that as popular as everything else is going on out there. There's got to be room for different things. There's got to be space made for different types of energy. And that's what we're here to do. And we're committed to it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I think that it's really very clear to the folks who tune in and listen and see the output. This couldn't happen without what you just said being true. You couldn't be where you are, you couldn't have created what you created, and you couldn't have sustained the way that you have without this trust, this integrity, and this energy between you both. So I definitely commend y'all for getting into this together and staying the course and recognizing the importance of this representation in and of itself, right? To be here and be a voice for music in the podcasting industry. I love it. So thank you for sharing that. Your core demographic is predominantly male, aged around 35 to 54. How do you tailor your content to appeal to this audience, and are there plans to broaden your listener base?
So we are Gen Xers, and we're very clear about it. We're very clear that we are Gen Xers, and we could talk about what we could talk about because we've lived that. So we do that, right? I think where we get to add our special sauce is the one thing that you can't quantify it, you can't explain it. I only describe it as heart. I think DJ Sir Daniel would agree. Is when we feel something like at those 10:30 meetings on a Sunday, or DJ Sir Daniel texts me something that he saw on Twitter, you have a feeling about a topic, and then we'll ask the question, is there a show in this? Or is there a topic here? And what's so special about that is we've had the opportunity to have conversations about people and experiences, not knowing what the future held for that, right? There have been several moments on Q Points that we've been on a pulse that we didn't even know we were on, where it was like, oh snap, like Q Points talked about that like 6 months ago, and all of a sudden it's a thing. So in terms of our core demographic, we are the core demographic. So we are creating content that we think we want to talk about, and those people are coming. I will say this though. And shout out to Crystal Hill. Crystal was like, you know, it's a bunch of millennials that listen to y'all too. And I'm like, absolutely. So that's what we found. Like, we're having these conversations based on our life experiences as like Gen Xers in our 40s, but we're reaching younger demographics who are like, I've never heard of that, or that's really interesting. Who is that? So it's kind of happening organically.
Right. And part of that expansion, like Jay Ray said, in touching on those millennials and the younger ones, is that our speech is inclusive. We're not beating up on the generations younger than us, because that's easy to do. And it's probably expected. We may, if we were younger, we looked younger, we talked a different language, we probably could have more listeners, because it's probably expected out of us that we're going to be punching down and we're going to be talking down to those younger generations. When in fact, we approach it from the standpoint of, no, we want to enlighten you. We want to let you know that this is not the first time this has happened. Here's what happened 20 years ago. And here's J. Ray and I's theory on what could have helped the situation instead of make it worse. Or we can think of things that are going to happen. And we include new artists in the conversations because we see something in them from somebody who has gone on before them. And we want to acknowledge that. And so to your point, Talib, is about increasing that demographic. That's where the social media conversations, the clips, things that pop off, when they do happen in real time, we hop on them in real time. And we hashtag that. Nikki and Meg, we're going to talk about it. Now, this is what happened 30 years ago that's very similar to this. You guys may not have known it. You should check this song out. You should check this record out, just so that you have a broader understanding of where this is coming from, and leave it at that. But at the same time, we're timely. We got to be timely. We have to be on the pulse of what's happening in society. Of course, I was at a gig, but I knew what was happening at the Grammys the whole time. And on my way home, what did I do? Hey, I had an idea for a show. What you think about this? This man is about to go to sleep, and I'm calling him up. I have an idea. I hope this ain't a bad time, but I have an idea. And so it's just, again, just being passionate about this and loving what you do and showing. It's going to show. It's going to appeal to people no matter their age or demographic breakdown. So I think that's just what's become important to us, touching on that demographic and expanding on it.
Mm-hmm. And I think one more thing to add, it's not a secret sauce. It's just also Sir Daniel and I existing at all of these intersections. So I actually found it really amazing and fascinating that we began to trend on Good Pods and one of the top LGBTQ podcasts, right? And I'm like, that's so dope, because Sir Daniel and I are existing in our fullness of who we are as Q points, right? Having all of these conversations across all of our intersections, right? And it's reaching folks at all of these different points. And Q points is just being Q points. And DJ Sir Daniel and myself are just being ourselves. And it's bringing people to the show. And I do think we are able to have conversations in a way that a lot of people can't because of our lived experience, right? And that does help, which I think for people to connect with the show. And we take it very seriously that we are speaking to like all of Black people, right? When you come on Q Points, we have a Q Points like manifesto that you have to sign off on. Click that you agree with all of these points, because you don't come to Q Points and start talking crazy, because that show's not going to air, or that section is not going to air, and we might have to talk about it, right? It's really important to us that we're holding all of these spaces.
I love that. I really do. As you all were talking about the approach to the conversation, I was thinking about the podcast Midnight Miracles with Dave Chappelle and Yassine Bey and Talib Kweli. And I don't know if you all heard it, but there was a point where Dave Chappelle asked a young person in the audience, how was he introduced to hip hop and who was the first person he heard? And of course, Dave Chappelle gave his, I remember this. This young man, he's like, I really couldn't tell you. I really don't know. And it's like, yeah, we're no longer in that space where you ask the question to a Gen X or an Alpha. It's just theirs now. It's just here. It was here when they got here, right? Versus us, where it was new and fresh. And what is that? Like, how can I hear more, see more, be around it more? That's just not the case. And so to have, right, us continuing to hold this space and hold this torch for the music that we actually love and appreciate it, we became inside of it in a lot of ways. It's just different now. It really is. And to be able to say, you know what, they're going to hear it and they'll get it if they get it. But I'm talking to the folks that I know get it. They're going to get my cultural references. We happen to talk and rap a lot, us Gen X. We'll be talking a regular conversation and we drop in hip hop lines because that's how we talk, right? And so it's just different. So I really love that you both are keeping this spirit, right? This energy of our music alive. It's super important. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to say that. So you both have emphasized the importance, this is what we're talking about, the importance of meaningful dialogue in celebrating Black music creatives. Can you share a memorable moment or interview? And I know you have a lot, but if there's anything that just comes to your mind that exemplifies this goal and you really being able to say, this is why we're here.
Off the top of my head, I had the pleasure and the opportunity to actually interview one of my mentors in radio, an Atlanta legend by the name of Joyce Littell. She graciously agreed to be on, and we ran a series about Black women in radio because that's important. Black radio is important, and the reason why so many Black women are employed in radio is because they know exactly that Black women can talk to other Black women. It's, of course, it's capitalism, of course, it's marketing, but that's who tunes in, and that's who Black women like to listen to, is other Black women. And so I had the opportunity to talk to her about her experiences, her being there at the nexus of an usher. Usher was maybe 12 or 14 years old when he came up to V103 here in Atlanta and had his first interview with someone like a Joyce Littell. She literally watched him grow up to be the entertainer that he is. And so I think it's very important, as somebody who is caching the culture, gathering information and keeping information so that other people can access it. Also speak to those people who are not necessarily on the mic and performing and on the record. There are people that are so important to the culture, like your radio jocks. Terrestrial radio was so important to Black people back in the day. It's not even funny. That's how they knew about when the Jim Crow laws are being passed. That's how they knew of such and such's new salon being open. Black people in the early days would go down when the radio station was at a storefront. Mary D. Dudley, first Black woman to have her own radio show and her own studio. The studio was located in Pittsburgh, in the middle of town, in a storefront. Do you know people would put on their Sunday best to go down to the storefront just to watch her do her shift, because they saw themselves, especially the women. The women were decked out. They came down because they wanted to see what she looks like. They wanted to see her crack the mic open, all of those things. That was entertainment. That was community support. So those types of things, to talk to somebody like a Joyce Littell that is in that lineage of a Mary D. Dudley is super important to me. And so that's one interview that sticks out in my mind in our canon of Blackness, if you would.
So, of course, Sir Daniel knows this. I'm a bit of a rule breaker. So I am going to do this really quickly, but there are three things from different eras of Q Points that actually stick out to me. The first time that I realized that we were doing something special was at the end of 2021. We did the best of Q Points. And one of the top shows that year, I was pulling clips from, and I was confused when I was pulling the clips because it said that in the show in July, we were having a conversation about Michael K. Williams and Archbishop Carl Bean in the same segment. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense because Archbishop Carl Bean and Michael K. Williams didn't pass away until September. What? Turns out we did. We were having a conversation. I don't know how I weaved both of these people into a specific segment in July. So we were having a conversation about Michael K. Williams's work on Crystal Waters, 100% Pure Love. And I was talking about the impact of Archbishop Carl Bean's I Was Born This Way in terms of like Black queer history. Those two men passed away a day apart in September. And I'm like, oh, wait, we are doing something really special by just talking from here, from our hearts, right? Two, The interview that we did with Donovan X. Ramsey about his debut novel, When Crack Was King, is one of, I think, the most important interviews that we have done, because we lived through the crack era, right? We saw what the crack era did to our communities, to folks in our communities, and how the music responded to that moment. And we got to talk to the author of that book, who spent so many years doing tireless research and really reorienting us to what happened, right? And we got a chance to sit down and spend an hour talking to Donovan about his book, and him saying to us, thank you for having this conversation, because we're talking from lived experience, right? To him about his work. And lastly, we started doing live shows at the end of 2023. And our last live show is so special to both Sir Daniel and I. We brought together two sets of mothers and sons to talk about music and the intergenerational conversation that these mothers are having from a music standpoint with their sons, right? And so we had a 17-year-old and a 22-year-old and their moms, and we got a chance to really sit and talk about what they shared, what lessons they learned, what they're doing with their lives, and in front of a studio audience. Right? We had an audience of people in this record store to participate with us in this moment. And I think, including what Sir Daniel said, because that Joyce Littell conversation is magic, right? And we don't talk about Black women in the Quiet Storm very often, and we need to. And we had that interview too, right? Having that conversation. But I think all of these things describe the heart of Q Points. It really is having as many conversations as we can have about this music that impacts everyone, the world. So yeah, those are my three.
I appreciate that. That's great. I wanted to talk really quickly. So, given your success and the experiences that you've gained, what's one piece of advice you would offer to aspiring podcast hosts and audio professionals, especially those looking to spotlight underrepresented communities?
I think my advice would be to be very clear about what your vision is. If you can, and this is going to sound cliche, but if you can take pen to paper and write specifically what you want to happen and who you want to talk to, yeah, and write it out. There's nothing wrong with having a vision statement. Nothing wrong with saying, this is my, as J. Ray put it earlier, my manifesto of what this podcast is all about. And then once you do that, once you become very clear about what your voice is and who you're talking to, then I believe all the other pieces will start to fall into place. Yes, you got to get all the technical specs together. You got to create your social media handles and website if you can, things like that. But at the heart of it, knowing who you are as a podcaster and who you're and the stories you want to tell is where you have to start. And because once there's no confusion about that, then you're able to present your vision to everybody else. Because then if you're not clear about it, then everybody else is going to try and create their narrative for you. And then next thing you know, you have conflama. You don't know what, okay, was this what I don't want to talk about this next. You have conflict with your producer or whoever else you have working with you on the show. So I think that's most important. And if you're doing it by yourself, fine. If you're doing it partnered or in an ensemble, get that clarity together. There's nothing wrong with your passion being your passion, but if your passion is also a business, there's nothing wrong with treating it like a business either. Jerry and I got to a point where we were like, you know what? This is a business and we're going to treat it as such. We are going to draw up paperwork. We're going to have a contractual agreement for this show, for this media package that we have created. Because down the line, when the checks start coming in, you don't want any issues. This is what's what. This is how it's going to pan out. This is what you both work towards. And so I think those two things are major for me, is getting that clarity of your voice and then handling your business, putting something down on paper and putting that out in the atmosphere. Like, I'm ready. This is what I want to happen. I'm set up. I'm set up as a business for me to start receiving monies, for receiving any kind of help, write-offs, all those types of things. Set yourself up for a great journey in this podcast game.
Sir Daniel really covered, like, those two are so critical that people do. They have to be absolutely clear on. I think if I was going to add anything from kind of the other side of things is be okay with shifting. It's okay to have an idea and change it, right? So, because as folks get into this, and that's one of the reasons I think pod fade happens so quickly, is because folks get into it, and in the world today, you think like podcasting is like a lot of money. And I'm very clear it's not, right? Like, people need to understand that those folks we see at the top and doing things, first of all, it took them years to get there. And that doesn't happen for the vast majority of folks. So if you're interested in podcasting, there needs to be a reason that you're interested, and remember what that reason is, because it keeps you coming back to the mic. And be okay with shifting if you need to shift. Sometimes we get tunnel vision. Sometimes we want to do the thing that we're doing for whatever reason, right? But it's okay. It's okay to change your mind. And yeah, but everything that Sir Daniel said, I think those two things are the most important things. Everything else, folks can figure out.
And podcasting is a slow cooker. It's not a microwave.
Real talk. Yes.
It's a slow cooker. You start smelling some of the ingredients and it starts to smell good, but it ain't ready yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what podcasting is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, both of your perspective on that, and to give yourself permission to be creative in a creative space. Like, what are we doing? We're creators. Create, right? Whatever it looks like, however many times you iterate it and make it what you want it to be, that is your prerogative as a creative. And also to take it and yourself seriously, because this is your work and there's value inside of that. And a lot of times when we start as creators, the other stuff is there about the value, right? And does it matter? Is there impact? Will it take me where my vision is? But the answer is yes, with intention, right? And clarity and understanding. So I love that perspective from the both of you. As we wrap this up, I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to promote anything that you want to promote in this moment, and absolutely tell people where they can find Q Points, and both of you, social media and online.
Well, we do this every week, so I guess I'll jump in and do the thing. So the most important thing that we tell people to do. So first and foremost, we are Q Points, and that's QUEUE Points. And you can find us on all the podcast platforms. There is not a platform that Q Points is not available on. We do definitely encourage people to check us out on Good Pods, because one, that lets other people know what you're listening to and you can review us there. We encourage people to listen to us on Apple Podcasts because you can leave us reviews there, as well as on Podchaser. So, but you can hear us anywhere. So wherever you decide to listen to your podcast, please do. Spotify, you can also review us there too. And I realize, Sir Daniel, I don't know if you know this, we have ratings on Spotify now. I had no idea. We're 5 stars on Spotify. So just so you know, we're 5 stars on Apple too. So just so you know. So listen to the show. It's absolutely free. We tell people, if you can see us or hear us, subscribe there, right? And we ask people to do us a solid. Share the show with your friends. If you love Q Points or you're having a good time, share it with your friends, family, colleagues, because chances are they'll love it too because you love it. And that's the easiest way to support the show. And it's free. Another free way to support is you can become a Q Points Insider. If you visit our website, that gives you that opportunity. Right now it's free. We're about to turn on that subscription again, so you could get some of the back channel. We have a whole membership back end, by the way. There's a whole bunch of stuff that people will have access to that no one has access to unless you're a member. So you can do that on our website at qpoints.com. And another free thing that we mentioned earlier, Q Points Magazine. We go into other stuff that we just don't have time to cover on the show. And you could get that in the magazine, as well as some other interesting articles. I'm really proud, as Sir Daniel said, I agree with him, really proud of that growth. And you could buy merch in our store. That's another way to kind of support us at store.qpoints.com.
I will say, so I don't want J Ray to leave without talking to everybody about his photography.
Oh.
I am going to say I am a DJ. I am a vinyl collector. So I do have a Mixcloud, mixcloud.com/the Sir Daniel. You can check out my latest mixes. I should be posting some again soon. I am down to send me an invite. You want me to come play at your store? I love retail. I love art galleries. I love those kinds of settings. If you want a vinyl aspect at your setting and you want somebody to provide sound and create a vibe there for you, I'm there. Just hit me up at thesardaniel.com, which is my website. And then also, if you happen to be in the Atlanta area on a Sunday evening, you can check me out at Rocksteady Atlanta, which is a premier bar and lounge. I am in the dining area, supplying all the Sunday evening vibes for the dinner guests. And of course, we have a whole music gallery upstairs for those people that want to party hard. So that's where you can find me. And I am DJ Sir Daniel everywhere. That's my handle everywhere, DJ Sir Daniel.
Absolutely. And thank you, Sir Daniel, for encouraging us to do that. So there's a couple of things that people can absolutely do. Follow me at J Ray is the name everywhere. I'm updating actually my YouTube because I'm going to be launching some new content over on the YouTube side of things. But JAYRAY is the name on all social media. If you're interested in checking out my photography, if you go to static.com, that's STATICC.com. You can check that out. And actually, if you really want to see a whole bunch of Johnny Ray Cornegay work, my day job. So I am Deputy Director of Strategy and Impact for the Counter Narrative Project, also known as CNP. If you follow CNP Tribe everywhere and look at all the CNP platforms and all of that stuff, chances are you are seeing work that I have done. So that's another great opportunity. And also to stay connected to a great nonprofit, not just because I work there, but because we genuinely are doing work to change folks' lives, particularly Black LGBTQIA+ folk.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to connect at this level. We haven't done this, and so I love that we have done this.
Yes.
We have officially had a conversation.
And to say thank you, Talib, for creating this moment, not just this moment, but for creating Afros and Audios and just creating a home for us podcasters, Black podcasters, to come and connect and to really share great information. The past couple of years that I've attended, I've had a really good time. It's something I look forward to. So please support this brother and his movement. Afros and Audios is the move.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to do as well. If you are considering podcasting or you're in podcasting and trying to figure it out, you absolutely need to be at Afros and Audio. So make sure that you are in Baltimore in October, participating in the space, right? You get the opportunity to meet a bunch of dope folks. You get the opportunity to learn some things that you may not know. And it is invaluable that we have spaces for us, by us. So thank you, Talib, to your entire team for like really creating that for us. Like, it is for podcasters at all levels. It's so important that we get to just be in rooms with each other and learn from one another. And only we can do that for us. So echoing Sir Daniel, Afros and Audio is the move. You have to be there.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate that. I will take that part out and use it as a, as a promo.
You know what I'm saying? We done gave you a TikTok.
Word up. Well, I appreciate y'all. I want to give a big thanks to our Afros and Audio and Black Podcasters Association members for supporting our commitment for community and collaboration. If you'd like to join the Black Podcasters Association, the link will be in the description. And if you want to join us at the 6th Annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, visit afrosandaudio.com. Follow at Afros and Audio on all social media channels. And you can find and follow me at Talib Jasir on Instagram. Thanks again, J. Ray and DJ Sir Daniel, for being a part of Afros and Audio's Black History Month interview series. It's been a pleasure. It's been a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.